The Houston Rockets just got hit with one of the toughest pieces of news they could possibly get heading into the season, and it changes a lot of what people expected from them. Fred VanVleet, the veteran point guard who was supposed to be a stabilizing leader for this young group, tore his ACL and is now expected to miss the entire year. That kind of injury doesn't just take away a starter, it takes away a guy who was meant to be the glue between all these developing talents and a superstar presence like Kevin Durant, who they just added to the mix. Losing him is brutal, not only because of what he gives you on the court, but also because of how much he was supposed to be the voice and the tone setter for the locker room. It's the type of situation that leaves fans asking the same question. Does this completely derail the Rockets' chances this season, or can they find ways to stay in the hunt without him? From a basketball standpoint, it's a really interesting conversation. Fred VanVleet is not a player who dominates every possession like a Luka Doncic or a Stephen Curry, but he does so many little things that make the game easier for everyone else. He organizes the offense, he's capable of knocking down shots, and defensively, he gives you effort and intelligence even when he's undersized. For Houston, he was meant to be that connector, someone who makes sure Alperen Sengun gets touches in the right spots, who keeps Amen Thompson comfortable as he continues developing as a lead guard, and who allows Kevin Durant to conserve energy by not having to initiate every possession himself. Without him, the Rockets are now forced to throw that responsibility on a combination of very young players and a newcomer in Reed Sheppard, who has yet to prove himself at the NBA level. Now, the Rockets are far from finished because they still have a lot of talent, but losing Fred does create ripple effects that can alter the ceiling of this team. Think about what Durant brings to the table: scoring, spacing, veteran presence, and championship experience. That's all massive, but Durant isn't necessarily the type of guy who wants to run the offense from the top of the key every single play. He thrives when there's structure, when he can pick his spots, and when there's a point guard who knows how to get him the ball in rhythm. VanVleet was exactly that. Without him, it means Durant and Sengun are probably going to take on more playmaking duties, which they can handle, but shifts their roles slightly away from where they're at their best. On top of that, the Rockets are still a very defense-first team. They're built on length, wingspan, and versatility. When you look at their roster, nearly every guy is long, athletic, and capable of switching. That identity is still intact, even without VanVleet, and it's probably why some people believe they'll survive this blow better than expected. They can hide some of Reed Sheppard's early struggles on the defensive end because the rest of the group can cover so much ground. But on the offensive side, it's where the questions come up. Houston struggled at times last season with spacing, with consistent scoring outside of Durant and Sengun, and with guards who could consistently create for others. That's why VanVleet's presence was so critical. He gave them just enough shooting and just enough steady ball handling to open up the game. Reed Sheppard might actually be the key here. He's young, but if he develops quickly and brings a shooting touch to the Rockets from day one, he could give them a boost in exactly the area they've lacked. Sheppard has a chance to be more of a pure shooter than VanVleet ever was. And that's valuable because it spaces the floor for Durant, Sengun, and Jabari Smith Jr. It also allows Amen Thompson to take on more on-ball responsibilities without worrying about clogging the lane. The big question is how quickly Sheppard can adjust to the NBA speed and physicality. Rookie guards often take time, but if he's able to accelerate his growth, Houston could even find a silver lining in this unfortunate situation. That being said, you can't downplay the leadership aspect. VanVleet wasn't just penciled in as a starter. He was expected to be the locker room presence who taught this young roster how to handle the ups and downs of a long NBA season. Kevin Durant brings some of that, no doubt, but Durant has always been more of a lead-by-example player than a vocal orchestrator. VanVleet was going to be that steady voice. Now the Rockets are relying on Durant to step into that role, or on someone like Jeff Green, who is a seasoned veteran but not exactly the same type of floor general. This is where you worry that the Rockets could feel the absence not in the first month of the season, but later on, in the dog days when teams start hitting adversity and young groups need direction. Financially, this also creates challenges. The Rockets are capped out and don't have a lot of flexibility to go sign a veteran replacement. They essentially have to roll with what they've got. That's why someone like Gabe Vincent from the Lakers could become interesting down the line, because he can fill that steady hand role without being tied to the roster long-term. But Houston isn't in a position to make a move immediately. They'll likely wait and see how things develop with Shepherd and Amen Thompson before even considering any trade. For the Lakers, though, this is where things start to get intriguing. Houston might not be as strong in the regular season now, which could shift the standings in the Western Conference. Every small change matters when you're talking about playoff seeding. And if the Rockets take a slight step back, it might open the door for the Lakers to climb higher. At the same time, it also creates trade scenarios where Los Angeles could potentially get involved. Houston has a lot of wings and versatile defenders, and if the Rockets decide they need a stopgap at guard, the Lakers have exactly that in Gabe Vincent. His contract is manageable, and it could give Houston someone to stabilize the backcourt while Van Vliet recovers. For the Lakers, it could mean bringing back a piece that fills another need, like wing depth or even an upgrade at backup center, depending on how the market develops. But to pull it back to Houston, the immediate story is this. Losing Fred Van Vliet is a huge blow, no matter how you spin it. It might not completely crush their season, because the Rockets are still talented enough to compete, but it definitely shifts their margin for error. They'll need Shepherd to step up, they'll need Amen Thompson to accelerate his growth as a playmaker, and they'll need Kevin Durant to carry an even bigger load both on the floor and in the locker room. If all of that comes together, Houston might actually discover a version of their team that has a higher ceiling because of the offensive versatility Shepherd could bring. If it doesn't, though, they might find themselves fighting just to stay near the top tier of the West instead of competing for a championship like many predicted before this injury. When you really sit down and think about how this Rockets season could play out without Fred Van Vliet, it almost feels like there are two completely different paths. On one hand, you have the obvious risk of the team losing stability, having a young backcourt that might not be ready for the grind, and then seeing Durant forced to do more than he should at this stage of his career. That version of Houston would be good, competitive, and capable of making the playoffs, but not really seen as a threat to win the conference. On the other hand, there is this alternative scenario where losing Van Vliet actually accelerates the development of the younger guys and forces them to figure things out earlier than expected. If that happens, the Rockets could actually end up being more dangerous than originally planned, because instead of having one steady veteran guard running the show, they suddenly have multiple players capable of carrying stretches of the offense and creating new looks. The biggest swing factor is going to be Reed Shepherd. If he comes in and shows that his shooting translates right away, it immediately changes Houston's identity. One of the weaknesses last year was floor spacing. Durant will open things up, but if Shepherd could be a reliable threat from deep, that changes the entire geometry of the floor for Sengun, for Jabari Smith Jr., and for Amen Thompson attacking the basket. You don't even need Shepherd to be elite right away, just competent and confident enough to keep defenses honest. Every defense is going to test him early. They're going to dare him to shoot, and he has to prove he can hit those shots with consistency. If he does, then the Rockets are much tougher to guard than they were with Van Vliet, who has always been a bit streaky from behind the arc. Amen Thompson is the other player whose trajectory now becomes more important. With Van Vliet out, Thompson almost has to take on more responsibility as a playmaker. That might be a blessing in disguise. Sometimes young guards need those opportunities to be thrown into the fire to learn how to run an offense in real time. He is already a gifted passer and an explosive athlete, so the tools are there. What he needs is reps, experience, and the chance to make mistakes without always looking over his shoulder at a veteran taking the ball out of his hands. If Houston commits to giving him more control, it might not look perfect in November, but by March and April he could be a much more polished floor general. That could raise the ceiling of the Rockets far beyond what it would have been if Van Vliet had stayed healthy. Kevin Durant, of course, is the stabilizer in all of this. No matter how you view Houston's roster, no matter what questions you have about the young guys, when you have Durant, you have a chance. He has proven it time and time again in his career. He doesn't just score, he bends defenses, he opens up looks for teammates, and he carries the kind of presence that opponents respect. What Houston needs from him now is not just his usual scoring brilliance, but also the ability to take on a bigger leadership role. This team will look to him in moments of adversity, And with Van Vliet gone, there's no one else in that locker room with championship pedigree. Durant doesn't have to suddenly become the loudest voice, but his experience and guidance are going to matter more than ever. What makes this situation so fascinating is that Houston still has incredible defensive depth. They are arguably the longest team in the league, with a roster stacked full of players who can guard multiple positions. Even if Shepherd struggles defensively as a rookie, the Rockets can hide him. They can surround him with Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, and others who cover so much ground that one weak link isn't going to sink them. That's why many analysts believe they'll remain a tough matchup night after night. Defense doesn't slump as much as shooting does, and Houston is built to hang their hat on that end of the floor. The challenge is going to be generating enough half-court offense against elite defenses in the playoffs. Van Vliet was supposed to be that steady hand in crunch time, someone who could initiate, calm things down, and get a good shot when things broke down. Without him, that responsibility will shift to Durant and Sengun primarily, with Thompson and Shepherd helping where they can. The Rockets might actually be more explosive this way, but they could also be more prone to turnovers and inconsistency. That's the trade-off they face. Looking further down the road, you can't ignore how this situation might impact the trade market. If Houston decides that Shepherd and Thompson aren't ready to take on those responsibilities right away, they could look for a temporary replacement. That's where the Lakers come in. Gabe Vincent is a name that keeps surfacing because his skill set is almost a budget version of what Van Vliet provided. He won't light up the scoreboard, but he can bring the ball up, get the team into their sets, defend his position, and hit open threes. For a Rockets team that just needs someone steady, Vincent could be ideal. The Lakers, meanwhile, could benefit by flipping him for one of Houston's many wings or a versatile big like Clint Capella if he becomes available. Before we continue, we ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Lakers updates. Moving on, the basketball world is buzzing with whispers that could reshape the landscape of the NBA. Kevin Durant, one of the league's most prolific scorers, is reportedly on the verge of joining the Los Angeles Lakers. Sources close to the situation hint that discussions have reached an advanced stage, sparking feverish speculation among fans, analysts, and rival teams alike. While no official announcement has been made, the mere prospect of Durant donning the purple and gold has ignited a wave of excitement and skepticism across social media. Durant, a two-time NBA champion and one of the most versatile forwards of his generation, has long been a subject of trade rumors. The Lakers, known for their aggressive pursuit of superstar talent, appear determined to strengthen their roster, and Durant fits the mold of the transformational player they crave. If true, this move could dramatically shift the balance of power in the Western Conference, pairing Durant's scoring brilliance with the Lakers' established core. The combination of his elite offensive skills and the team's championship pedigree would create a lineup that rivals might find nearly impossible to contain. Speculation about how the Lakers would manage salaries and roster adjustments has also been rampant. Insiders suggest that the franchise is exploring multiple avenues, from clever cap space maneuvers to potential player swaps, to make room for Durant without compromising future flexibility. Meanwhile, fans are already imagining the electrifying moments, buzzer beaters, highlight reels, and record-breaking performances that a Durant-Lakers collaboration could produce. Analysts, however, caution that injuries and chemistry remain unpredictable factors, and turning rumor into reality is never straightforward in today's NBA. Despite the uncertainty, one thing is clear. The mere possibility of Kevin Durant in Los Angeles has generated a frenzy that has not been seen since previous superstar acquisitions. Every outlet seems eager for confirmation, while betting lines and social chatter surge in anticipation. Whether this is a fleeting rumor or the beginning of a seismic NBA shift, the Lakers' story this season promises intrigue, excitement, and perhaps a new chapter in the legend of Kevin Durant. Stay informed exclusively about Los Angeles Lakers news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep receiving daily updates. Also, share your opinion on the news in the comments, as your contribution is crucial for the Lakers. Stay tuned for the next video.